You wake up somewhere around 55 and something feels off. The energy that used to be automatic is gone. Your hands run cold. The little machine at the pharmacy keeps flashing a higher number than it did 5 years ago. Your doctor calls it aging. I didn't buy it. Here's what I found after weeks of digging. Your body slowly stops making a tiny invisible molecule called nitric oxide as you get older, and about $1 worth of something you almost certainly already own can help switch that production back on. I stumbled onto this chasing a question nobody at the clinic would answer straight, and the reason it stayed so quiet turned out to have less to do with your health and more to do with what got sold to you instead. The trail leads back to a Nobel Prize handed out in 1998 and to a study out of London that measured this exact thing inside men's arteries. The fix at the end costs less than a cup of coffee, and anyone with a kitchen tap and a spoon can do it tonight. It started for me on an ordinary Tuesday, standing in a drugstore aisle in front of a shelf of $40 nitric oxide supplements, staring at a label that listed beet powder like it was some rare miracle ingredient. That was the moment something didn't add up. Because if the answer was beets, why was I holding a bottle that cost more than a week of groceries? So I want to take you down the exact path I walked, one clue at a time, because the deeper I went, the stranger it got. Let me start with the thing nobody explained to me, the thing that changes how you understand your entire body after 50. For most of my life, I had never heard the words nitric oxide, not once, and yet it turns out this single molecule may be one of the most important things keeping you alive right now. Nitric oxide is a gas your body makes on its own, and its main job is deceptively simple. It tells the smooth muscle lining your blood vessels to relax and open up. When those vessels widen, blood flows easier, pressure drops, oxygen reaches your brain, your hands, your feet, every organ you've got. When nitric oxide is high, you feel warm, sharp, alive. When it drops, everything narrows. The blood has to push harder through tighter pipes. And that, right there, is the cold hands, the higher pressure, the fog. Now here is the first clue that stopped me cold. In 1998, 3 American scientists, Robert Furchgott, Louis Ignarro, and Farid Murad, won the Nobel Prize in Medicine. Not for curing cancer, not for a vaccine. They won it for discovering that nitric oxide acts as a signaling molecule in the cardiovascular system. Think about that. The medical world considered this discovery important enough for its highest honor, and most men over 50 have never once heard the phrase. That gap bothered me. How does something win a Nobel Prize and then vanish from every ordinary conversation about aging? But the deeper irony is what really pulled me in. The man that prize is named after, Alfred Nobel himself, the inventor of dynamite, developed a bad heart late in his life, and his doctors prescribed him nitroglycerin, the same explosive compound he'd built his fortune on. Nobel wrote in a letter, roughly, that it seemed like fate's idea of a joke, that he was told to swallow the very thing he manufactured. What nobody understood back in the 1890s was why nitroglycerin eased chest pain. It took almost 100 years to learn the answer. The body converts nitroglycerin into nitric oxide, and the nitric oxide opens the vessels around the heart. So the treatment existed for a century before anyone knew the real mechanism. The molecule was doing the healing the whole time, in the dark. That's when I realized I wasn't chasing some fringe idea. I was chasing something the medical world had known was real for over 100 years, and simply never bothered to translate into plain advice for regular people. So my next question was obvious. If this molecule matters that much, why does it fade? And more importantly, can I get it back without a prescription? That's where the trail took a turn I didn't expect. Because the reason nitric oxide drops with age is not one single thing. There are 2 separate factories in your body that produce it, and both of them break down as you get older, but only one of them can be rescued cheaply, and almost nobody tells you which one. Let me explain, because this is where it started to feel like someone had deliberately left the useful half of the story out. Your first nitric oxide factory lives inside the lining of your blood vessels. It's run by an enzyme, and it uses an amino acid called arginine to spin out nitric oxide on demand. This is the system most supplement companies talk about. It's why those $40 bottles are stuffed with L-arginine and L-citrulline. But here is the part they don't put on the label. As you cross into your 50s and 60s, that enzyme system gets damaged. Oxidative stress wears it down. Feeding it more arginine when the machine itself is rusted is like pouring gas into an engine with a cracked block. That's why so many men buy those pills, feel almost nothing, and quietly give up, assuming nothing works. I did exactly that. I spent close to $200 over a few months on capsules that did nothing I could feel, and I almost concluded the whole nitric oxide idea was hype. But then I found the second factory, and the second factory changed everything. Because the second pathway doesn't rely on that worn-out enzyme at all. It runs on something completely different, something you eat. And when the first factory fails with age, this second one becomes your main hope. Yet it was the one nobody selling me pills wanted to discuss. So I want to show you the study that proved this second pathway works, because the numbers genuinely surprised me, and they'll surprise you too. In 2015, researchers at Queen Mary University of London ran a trial and published it in the journal Hypertension. They took people with high blood pressure and gave them 1 ordinary cup of beetroot juice a day. Just beetroot juice. No drug, no supplement. After 4 weeks, their blood pressure dropped by an average of around 8 points on the top number. 8 points from a vegetable juice. That is a change in the same range doctors expect from certain blood pressure medications, and it came from produce you can buy at any market. The researchers were clear about why. Beets are loaded with natural nitrate, and that nitrate feeds the second factory, the one that doesn't need the broken enzyme. Your body takes that dietary nitrate and, through a series of steps, converts it into nitrite and then into nitric oxide. So now I had proof. Food could do what my expensive capsules couldn't. And beets weren't the only source. Arugula, that peppery salad green, is one of the richest nitrate sources on Earth. So is spinach, celery, and Swiss chard. I felt like I'd cracked it. Eat more leafy greens and beets. Feed the second factory. Done. But something still didn't fit. And this is the contradiction that pushed me into the strangest part of the whole investigation. Because I knew people, and maybe you do too, who eat plenty of vegetables and still have high blood pressure and cold hands and low energy. If dietary nitrate were the whole answer, that shouldn't happen. There had to be a missing step, a hidden link between the nitrate you swallow and the nitric oxide your body actually makes. And when I found that missing link, I understood for the first time why this knowledge had been quietly buried, and who profited from your not knowing it. Here's the piece that had been left out of every glossy article I'd read. The conversion of that vegetable nitrate into usable nitric oxide does not start in your stomach. It does not start in your blood. It starts in your mouth. Specifically, it starts on the back of your tongue. Living on the surface of your tongue is a special colony of friendly bacteria. Their entire job, from your body's point of view, is to take the nitrate from your food and perform the first crucial step, turning it into nitrite. Without these bacteria, the nitrate you eat mostly passes straight through you, useless. The chain is broken at step 1. Human beings and these tongue bacteria evolved together over hundreds of thousands of years to run this exact partnership. You feed them nitrate from plants. They hand you back the raw material for nitric oxide. It's one of the oldest deals in biology. And now I need to tell you what breaks that partnership, because this is the moment the whole thing turned from a health mystery into something that genuinely made me angry. In 2019, researchers published findings showing that people who used antibacterial mouthwash twice a day saw their blood pressure climb measurably within just 1 week. The mouthwash was doing exactly what it advertised. It was killing bacteria in the mouth. The problem is that it doesn't just kill the bacteria that cause bad breath. It wipes out the good nitrate-reducing bacteria on your tongue at the same time. Kill those bacteria, and you snap the first link in the chain. You can eat all the beets and arugula in the world, and it won't matter, because the workers who process it are dead. Sit with that for a second. For decades, millions of men over 50 have been told to rinse twice a day with a strong antiseptic mouthwash for a clean, healthy mouth. And that daily habit may have been quietly sabotaging one of the most important molecules for their heart, their brain, and their blood flow. Nobody connected the two things out loud. Nobody had a reason to. Because think about who profits. There is no patent on beetroot. There's no patent on arugula. There is certainly no patent on the bacteria that already live on your tongue for free. But there are enormous, well-funded products built around cleaning your mouth, and enormous, well-funded products built around treating the high blood pressure that follows. Both sides of that equation make money. The little free molecule in the middle makes nobody anything. I'm not saying anyone sat in a room and plotted this. I'm saying that when a piece of knowledge earns nobody a profit, nobody spends a dime to make sure you hear about it. It doesn't get buried by a villain. It gets buried by silence, and silence is cheaper. That's why a Nobel Prize molecule from 1998 is still a mystery to the average person in his 60s. Not because it's complicated, because there was no salesman for the truth. And that is exactly the kind of thing I keep running into, a real signal, sitting in plain sight, that nobody ever handed to you in order. What you are getting in this video is the whole nitrate trail, free, start to finish. But there was far more that would not fit here, so I wrote it down properly in my collection of books for people past 60 who are done being told it is just aging. In them I take you further than one video allows, how to read your own blood work and tell a real warning from noise, what your cold feet and slow wounds are actually saying about your circulation, which supplements collide with your prescriptions, and the exact words to use so a 5-minute visit does not end with another prescription. Every fix in there costs between nothing and about the price of a bunch of arugula, using only what is already in your kitchen, and every claim is traced to a free public source so you can verify it yourself before you change a thing. If that sounds like you're kind of stubborn, scan the QR code right there on your screen, link in the description, pinned comment. Now, back to the trail, because at this point I thought I had it solved. So by this point in my search, I had the pieces. I knew the second factory ran on nitrate. I knew tongue bacteria were the missing link. I knew mouthwash could break it. But I still didn't have the thing I promised you at the start. The $1 fix you add to water. The simple move that ties all of this together and pushes it as far as it can go. And to find that, I had to stop reading and start testing on myself. Which is exactly what I want to walk you through next, because this is the part built for you and your ordinary kitchen. Now I know some of you have been listening to all this thinking, that's fine for people with money for organic beet juice and fancy powders, but that's not my life. This next part is specifically for you. I mean that. If you have a tap, a glass, and a single common item that costs about $1, you already own everything you need. No supplements, no trip to a specialty store, no professional required. Let me build it up the way I discovered it, because each step matters and I don't want you to waste any of it. The first thing I changed cost me nothing at all. I stopped using antiseptic mouthwash. That was it. If your mouth feels like it needs freshening, warm salt water works, or simply brushing and a bit of baking soda. The goal is to stop killing the tongue bacteria you've spent your whole life growing. Give those friendly workers a few days, and they repopulate on their own, for free. The second thing was almost as simple. I started scraping my tongue gently in the morning, but only lightly, just enough to clear the film, never scrubbing it raw. The colony you want lives deeper in the surface, so a gentle pass keeps things clean without wiping out your allies. You can use a spoon you already own. Turn it upside down and draw it back a couple of times. That's it. The third thing was about food, and here I want to save you money, not cost you money. You do not need $40 beet capsules. A bunch of fresh arugula is often $1 or $2 and has more nitrate per bite than almost anything else you can buy. A raw beet is pocket change. Even ordinary spinach works. The trick I learned is not to boil these into oblivion, because heavy boiling leaches the nitrate out into the water you pour down the drain. Eat them raw in a salad, or steam them lightly, and keep the nitrate where it belongs, in the food going into you. And here's a small timing detail that made a real difference for me. I stopped drinking coffee the very first thing in the morning and let my tongue bacteria do their work first. Because your mouth does most of this nitrate conversion in the hours after you eat those greens, and you don't want to disrupt it right away with harsh drinks. Already, with just these free changes, I felt warmer in the hands within about 2 weeks. My evening readings on that little pharmacy machine started drifting down. I want to be honest with you, it wasn't dramatic overnight. It was steady. It was real, and it cost me almost nothing. But steady wasn't enough for me. I wanted to know the final piece. The thing you add to plain water for $1 that pushes this whole system to its peak, because everything up to now was clearing the road. The last step was stepping on the gas, and when I finally found it, in the work of one specific researcher, it was so simple, I laughed out loud. Let me take you there. The name I kept running into, over and over, as I dug through the science of the nitric oxide pathway, was Nathan Bryan. He's a researcher who has spent much of his career, including work connected to the University of Texas, studying exactly how the body makes nitric oxide from what we eat and what lives in our mouths. If anyone deserves credit for dragging this out of the lab and toward regular people, it's the line of researchers he belongs to. And the piece that pulled the whole trail together for me is about something you'd never suspect. It's about how acidic your mouth and stomach are, about pH. Here's the secret the whole thing hinges on. That crucial conversion, the one your tongue bacteria start and your body finishes, depends heavily on the right acid conditions at the right moment. When the environment tips too far one direction, the chemistry stalls. When it's balanced correctly, the nitrite you've made turns into nitric oxide efficiently. Get the pH right, and you unlock the whole pathway. Get it wrong, and even good bacteria and plenty of nitrate can underperform. So the $1 fix, the thing you add to a glass of water, is a small pinch of ordinary baking soda. Plain sodium bicarbonate. The same box that's been sitting in kitchens for 100 years. Let me be precise, because precision is what separates this from a rumor. You take about a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda and stir it into a glass of water. Not a heaping spoon, a small, measured pinch. What that does is gently buffer the acidity in your mouth and your system, nudging the environment toward the conditions where your tongue bacteria thrive and where the nitrite you've built converts more smoothly. Baking soda also raises the pH of your saliva, and a less acidic mouth is exactly the environment those good nitrate-reducing bacteria prefer. You're not just adding a chemical, you're rebuilding the home your helpful bacteria want to live in. A box of baking soda costs about $1 and lasts for months. Compare that to a $40 bottle of pills built around the one pathway that's already broken in men over 50. The cheap box works with your biology. The expensive bottle ignored how your biology actually functions. Now, I want to be responsible here, because you're a careful person, and you should be. Baking soda has sodium in it, so if your doctor has told you to watch your sodium closely, or you have kidney concerns, you talk to them first, and you keep the amount small. This is a gentle pinch, used sensibly, not a spoonful you gulp all day. Respect it, and it's one of the safest, cheapest things in your house. So here is the full picture, the whole trail assembled, the way I now do it, and the way you can start this very weekend. You put away the harsh antiseptic mouthwash that was quietly killing your tongue bacteria. You give those bacteria a few days to come back, for free. You eat a handful of raw arugula, or a bit of grated raw beet, or some fresh spinach, not boiled to death, so the nitrate stays in the food. You gently clean your tongue in the morning with a spoon, without scrubbing away your allies, and you stir a small pinch of baking soda into a glass of water to set the pH conditions where your body converts all of that into the nitric oxide it's been starving for. That's it. That's the whole thing. A Nobel Prize molecule from 1998, a 100-year-old irony about Alfred Nobel and his nitroglycerin, a London study that dropped blood pressure 8 points with vegetable juice, a colony of bacteria on your tongue that mankind evolved with over hundreds of thousands of years, and a $1 box of baking soda that ties it all together. None of it was hidden behind a lock. It was just scattered, unadvertised, and left in silence because no one made money keeping you well. And I keep coming back to the strangest part. Every single piece of this was already published. The Nobel Committee announced it to the world. The London researchers printed their numbers. The mouthwash studies are right there. Nathan Bryan and others spelled out the pH chemistry in plain scientific language. Not one page of this is secret. The only secret was that no one ever put the pieces in your hands, in order, in words you could use. Because knowledge that helps you and costs $1 simply doesn't have a marketing budget. It has to be dug up by someone who got stubborn in a drugstore aisle and refused to accept that a $40 bottle was the only answer. I think about the men who came before us, the ones who kept a box of baking soda for everything, who ate from a garden full of greens and beets, who never rinsed their mouths with a chemical designed to sterilize everything living in them. They weren't smarter than us. They just hadn't yet been sold the more expensive way to be less healthy. In a strange way, the trail didn't lead to something new. It led back to something we used to know and quietly gave away. So when I feel warmth come back into my hands on a cold morning now, I don't feel like I discovered something. I feel like I recovered something. Something that was mine all along, that had been taken not by force, but by silence. And that's really what this comes down to. Somebody profited from you not knowing that your own tongue, a handful of cheap greens, and a pinch of baking soda could do what a shelf of expensive bottles pretended to do. You weren't failing. You were never told the full story. If you're the kind of person who has always suspected that the most useful knowledge gets buried precisely because it can't be sold back to you, then you already understand what this whole hunt was really about. You belong with the people who'd rather recover an old truth than rent a new gadget. Now I want to hear from you, and I'm asking directly, because I know this crowd reads quietly and rarely speaks up. Tell me one thing in the comments. Did you know, before today, that the very first step of making nitric oxide happens on the back of your tongue, and that a common mouthwash could shut it down? Just write yes or no, and tell me where you're watching from. That one answer tells me how deep this silence really goes. And if part of you feels the way I did in that drugstore aisle, that too much useful, honest knowledge has been quietly buried so someone else could sell you the expensive version, then come with me. Subscribing here isn't about supporting a channel. It's about joining a group of people determined to dig this stuff back up, one buried method at a time, and hand it to each other for free. because the next trail I'm already following is about an ordinary pantry item our grandparents kept by the stove, one that modern kitchens threw out, that may quietly do more for your sleep than anything sold in a pharmacy tonight. I found the first clue in an old household manual, and I can't stop thinking about what it means. Stir the pinch tonight. Feel the warmth come back, and I'll see you on the next trail. Before you go, here's where this leads. Inside the Timeless Ways circle, I continue this video with the full nitric oxide protocol, picking up right where we stopped. And when something's unclear, you ask me directly, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be alone in there. Just point your phone's camera at the code on your screen, and you can cancel anytime with one click. Come join us.